It's time for more Manifesting Original Rich-Bixch Experiences. I'm your host, Ava Beilke. Welcome back to the More Pod. I am super excited for today's episode, per usual, because we are talking astrology with the More Pod's resident astrologer, KJ Atlas. So we do this about 4 times a year, every time we're getting ready to head into a new season. And spring is on the way. Thank God spring is on the way. Winter, what was that? I don't know her anymore. Really excited to dive into an astrology forecast for what we can expect for spring, really with the goal of making sure that we are working with the energies to make our lives easier, not harder. And KJ is going to walk us through all the astrology that we need to know. Before we dive in, I wanted to just remind you that we now have full video episodes of the show available on YouTube. So if you would prefer to watch us instead of just listening, head over to YouTube at The More Pod, and you'll find the full episode there. Without further ado, KJ, welcome back to The More Pod.
Hey, girly. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I love doing this with you, so I'm really excited that we get to do it again. Yay! I totally skipped over your bio, though, so I want to make sure we get this in there. For anyone who is new, KJ Atlas is a professional astrologer of business, location, and love. She is our resident astrologer for the podcast. Like I said, she comes in. We do forecasts about 4 times a year so we can live our best Rich-Bixch lives. She's also one of my very best friends. So this is a really fun moment for us. And today we are just going to be diving into, like I said, spring. So looking at a 3-month astrology guide covering spring in the Northern Hemisphere, and really also the astrological new year. So I think we always forget that because technically, according to astrology, this is actually the start of the new year. And so we're going to be looking at the astrology of March 20th through June 21st of 2025. And KJ, I'm just going to let you take it away. How was your winter, first of all? Give us the tea.
I spent a lot of my winter in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, so that was great. That part was great. The fact that I was still on social media, that was the worst part of winter. And the motivation, because Mars retrograde was such a huge part of winter, that was brutal, not just for me, but for everyone in my orbit, everyone I love and care about. Experienced it in so many different ways, but all of a similar flavor, slightly different font. And it's never really great. There's so many ways I always like to use Mercury retrograde for this, use the season for this. Mars retrograde is a really tough one because it lasts so long. Luckily, we don't have to do that again for quite a while. We're free. We're in the clear. There's no more in 2025, but I ended up in Palm Springs. So there's that. I officially skipped the weather of winter, which as far as this year is concerned, like if that's the best thing that could happen, skipping the weather of winter during a Mars retrograde in the chaos of the world that is now, I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
How was yours?
Well, yes, I know that you don't like winter weather, so I'm glad that you could skip that. My winter was also a shit show. And this Mars retrograde, I feel like I felt that a lot. We talked about it in our last astrology forecast. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, how bad could it really be? And I just felt like I had absolutely no motivation to do anything. Everything felt hard. It was sluggish. It was slow. It was weird. And I was trying to just reflect on what happened. Also what we predicted would happen. Did not take any cruises, but I did evacuate the city of LA. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
Yeah, I was I didn't take any cruises either, but Bridget and I actually did talk about it very recently as like, should we do that towards the end of Mars retrograde? So it did come up as a potential plan. I've just been in a season of life where I'm moving to a new short-term rental almost every month. I have been since August. And so that wears on you in a very unique way that you only can empathize with if you've experienced it. And like to your point of having to evacuate, that throws a little plot twist in your plans. I know there's been a whole lot of stuff going on with home and all of that stuff. Like we've both really been through it with like home things, like just sudden stuff that you have to take care of. And I feel like that's a product of the season.
So much home things to take care of, and they just keep coming. But of course, I wanted to look at the highlights as well, right? Because the whole goal is like, if we know this is coming, like we can at least make the best of it. Obviously, we had Aquarius season, the best season in my opinion. It was my birthday, and you surprised the hell out of me.
Well, I lied to you.
You lied to me, and then you surprised the hell out of me for my birthday.
Because I called you on your birthday, or left you a voice note and said that I was in Mexico and I really wish I could be there. But I was actually in Palm Springs getting ready for your surprise birthday party. Yeah. That was a highlight for sure.
That was a highlight. Amy really pulled off a big one, obviously with you and Bridget's participation. And so having all my favorite people in the desert on my birthday and not knowing that was going to happen was honestly probably the highlight of my winter. It was
Probably one of my highlights too.
Thanks for doing that. That was so cute.
Yeah, it was great. I had a really Rich-Bixch experience, actually.
Do tell.
I bought a Beamer.
Oh, that's right. You bought a car. Which is
actually like, this is really monumentous for someone as avoidant and non-committal as me. I am terrified of things that keep me to one place, which a car does. But when you move, I managed to not have a car in LA for 2 years, and people thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
But it sucks to drive in LA, but in Palm Springs, it's really great to drive, but you have to have one. Like you really can't not have a car. And it's been amazing. And I haven't had a car since 2017 because I've been so nomadic and just gotten by and been in and out of the country so much. So it felt like kind of this monumental step into a new level. And I was like, if I'm going to drive a car, why the fuck not would I get a little white Beamer for the desert?
Yes. And would you like to share your car's name?
It's the Auntie Mobile.
Yes. That's all we needed. Episode is over. I think that is the best Rich-Bixch experience you could have for winter. And congratulations on your new car. That is super fun.
Thank you.
And you got it in before Mercury retrograde. So that's the important piece.
You know what's so funny? I did buy it during Mars retrograde.
Oh.
Mercury, I had a lot of astrologers up my ass about it. And they were like, you shouldn't be doing that. And I was like, okay, listen, do you realize that we have been in a retrograde season since mid-November, and we will be in one until mid-April with 1 week. One week. I don't know if you've ever tried to do anything like buy a car, but you can't really accomplish that task and get all the details accomplished in the 1 week, which actually wasn't a full week because February is not our full month.
Yeah.
You can't accomplish that. So here's my delineation of how you decide what decisions to make during periods that are not completely free and clear astrologically. The first order of business is, what is the nature of the beast? A car is a machine. A car is technology. A car is wheels. A car is transportation. That is all Mercury. One time, I went through and asked all my friends and family who had lemons, bad cars, issues with their cars, when they bought the car, and 10 cars that all had issues were all bought during Mercury retrogrades. And I said, never, ever, 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 ever will I buy a car during Mercury retrograde. And then Venus retrograde is more about purchases. And so I'm like, I'm not going to get myself into an icky financial situation with a Venus retrograde purchase. And so I got it during a Mars retrograde. And was it completely free and clear? Almost. It was really, 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 really good. The only issue is I had a little wind whistle, which feels very Mars. It's so aggravating and annoying when you're trying to go really, really fast, which feels exactly like Mars retrograde. But I took it to a punk rocker mechanic. And he basically was just like, whoever replaced the windshield the last time really screwed this up. So he just fixed the clips and there was no more sound and it didn't cost me hardly anything. And so, sometimes you have to just do things when you do them.
Yeah.
With the least amount of resistance. You have to be strategic.
Okay. Yeah, that's super helpful. And especially when we're like in these periods where there is no clear astrology. And my mom also had a lemon at one point, and we went back to the records. She had also bought it during a Mercury retrograde. So definitely no cars in that period, it sounds like. Confirmed 11 times over.
Actually, Mercury retrograde starts tonight. Like it's today, which is probably why we had a little few techie issues. But I always suspect that because I'm just kind of a walking Mercury retrograde.
Yeah.
But it starts March 14th.
Okay.
And so we're going to be in that
for
a little bit. But they don't last that long. That's the thing. Mercury retrogrades are only about 3 weeks.
Right. Yeah, that's the nice part. I mean, we saw with Mars, like it could be longer. It could really be longer, but luckily it's not. Before we dive into the astrology of spring, I want to talk a little bit about the fact that we are coming up on the new year. So I know one of the things that you're really big on is January 1st is not the new year. When we're looking at it from an astrological perspective, exactly, total scam. Really, the new year starts on the first day of spring. And so can you share a bit more about that mindset with us and then how we could be just really approaching the new year? I feel like this is something that's kind of relieving because I really have been having a hard time getting my shit together so far in 2025. And I'm looking forward to a fresh start with spring.
Well, you know what I like to preface with is because as a blonde white woman, when you say, well, the astrological new year is March 20th, there's a connotation of that. But if you reframe it and say, actually, your ancestors have been using this time period as the beginning seasons for agriculture and farming and coming out of hibernation, it is the natural new year that humans have been using all across the world for centuries. And yeah, maybe we celebrated the Gregorian calendar New Year as a new beginning of sorts, but I like to think of it as like the planning period. It's the beginning of the planning period. It's when we're starting to get our ducks in a row, but our ducks are not in a row yet. That's when March happens. That's where we're at now. It's this beginning where we actually put crisis into action. The plan happened back in January. Maybe you had some ideas of some things that you want to accomplish in 2025. But the reason that your workout routine or that crash diet or I'm going to limit myself to 20 minutes of screen time via social media a day doesn't stick is because it's not the natural time of implementation. It's still a season of rest because it's still a hibernation period. I don't know if you've seen that video of the bear crawling out of the ground after hibernation and his hair's like stuck up. Like, I feel that deeply.
Yeah.
And that is me until about right now. So use this time to just now get started. So if you're feeling exactly what you said of it's been so hard to be motivated, this has been like the winter of all winters. I know we said that last time we recorded.
Yeah.
And it really was. It really, really was the winter of all winters. And I hope you use it to at least rest and not beat yourself up if you weren't able to accomplish all of the things that you wanted to do. And now we're inching our way out of that and we can finally move forward. And it's just right on time. You're not late. You're right on time. Aries season is spring in the Northern Hemisphere. And it is the beginning of the zodiac. And it's the beginning of the wheel of the year. the beginning of the journey, and we should plant our seeds literally and metaphorically, if you're into that kind of thing, right now.
I love that. And it just makes sense. When you think about Aries and spring and all the things, it just makes sense that like this is the start.
Mm-hmm. If you compare Aries energy, which is this fire, Mars ruled cardinal sign, it is put on your sneakers and go. It is impulsive. You compare that to what we have going on January 1st, which is Capricorn, the ancient, earthy, Saturn ruled stoic grandpa of a sign.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, but yeah, that's way more in line with planning than actually getting your ass in gear, which is March. You know, it's like your elementary school coach. It's like, get off the bleachers and go. That's Aries. And then January is like your history teacher. That's like, I expect you all to be here on this day. Have a good one. You know, it's just such a different energy variance.
Yeah. Night and day, really.
Yeah. Slow and steady, hot and fast.
Yeah, absolutely. With that in mind, spring is officially starting. What is the energy of spring? If you were to give us like a high overview, what's it giving? What's a theme? What's the flavor? Like, what can we expect for this next period of time?
Off the bat, it's giving, we made it.
Yeah.
That's kind of been what I'm telling everyone. If we can make it to May, we can do anything. But I realize, you know, we're looking at the second half of March, April, and May, and the first part of June. That's what we're looking at here. And I realized that if we can make it to May, that's like halfway through this season. So if I had to break it into 3 themes, it's like chaos and transition. That's where we're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like pillow talk. It's like your rest. It's your come down. It's your chilling on the couch after a workout. It's like, okay, this is great. And then I think it's going to be a little bit of a breeze in the park before we get into some major transitions in summer, which is not what we're talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of this climactic energy, first of all, that sort of simmers down into a easy breezy beginning of summertime.
Okay. And yeah, we're recording at an interesting time because, you know, we covered a little bit of this time frame in our winter forecast. Obviously, we're like moving quickly through the end of March here for the spring forecast. But I do know that things feel absolutely insane right now. Like if we open our phones, if we read a bit of news, I mean, it's just like things are chaotic. And I remember you telling me that this was going to be just some of like the craziest astrology of 2025. So what's happening yet here?
Honestly, of our lifetime, truthfully. I mean, it's the craziest astrology that I've seen since I've been doing this full time since like 2019. Like,
wow.
What's going on is crazy. You don't need me to validate that. You can just walk outside or open your phone, like you said, but yeah.
So then my first question is, what's happening for this first part of spring here? What are the astrological moments? Like, what do we need to know? What are these kind of key moments for this like peak that you've mentioned? Like, what's going on?
Spring and Aries season start March 20th. That's the beginning of all this, which is in the middle of Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, and eclipse season. So we did talk about these things in our last one, but I feel we should recap them because it is the second half of the transit.
Yeah.
Let's start with Venus retrograde since that's already been going on. That started March 1st and it will go through April 12th. That's a long one. You know what's funny about this? So I'm a Southern girl from the Bible Belt and had to go to Sunday school a lot as a child. And one thing that stands out is, it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. And then when I started going to astrology school and reading the Bible as literature, which is actually a whole part of astrology, is that the Bible is an allegory for the planets.
Mm.
I don't make the rules. I'm just a messenger. The 40 days and 40 nights that is being talked about of the rain is Venus retrograde.
Oh,
I didn't make that. I didn't write that. I didn't make that up. But it is something that the astrological scholars of yesteryear, before it was divorced from astronomy, spoke about.
okay.
And I don't know if you know that story in the Bible, but it is really sad. It's about destruction and terror and sadness, and only 2 of every animal gets saved. Venus retrograde is horrific.
I've never read it, so thank you for the education.
Bless your Minnesota childhood.
Wait, only 2 of animals. Okay. Is this where the arc comes in? I mean, we don't have to go too much further down this.
Yeah, so it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, and that's how long Venus retrograde lasts.
Okay.
Except now the issue is I got drunk and I spent too much online shopping. They over-injected your Botox and now you have a migraine, and you got ghosted by some Silver Lake boy. Like, these are our modern Venus retrograde woes,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also feel like I've noticed a lot of couples in my sphere, like, going through challenging times. Is that another piece of...
I have heard about so many divorces and split ups in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When things happen during like a Venus retrograde like that, does it mean that they're like permanent, or is it just like a little like moment of like, whoop, and then they get back on track?
It can be both. I was thinking about how, I think it was Angelina and Brad got together during a Venus retrograde and then dissolved their relationship during a Venus retrograde. And so sometimes relationships just have that kind of quality to it. And then, sort of on its own timeline. I was talking to someone the other day who told me she was getting a divorce. And I was like, I would normally say, like, don't do that during a Venus retrograde. But sister, you've been talking about this for 2 years. And so sometimes Venus retrograde can come in and kind of clear up that mess that you've been holding on to.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really have any hard and fast rules on whether or not you should actually move forward with the breakup or not. It's kind of a dependent situation. The one thing I always say is kind of be careful about entering new relationships during Venus retrograde. Doesn't mean that it's not real or true. Sometimes you just don't see the person for who they really are.
Interesting. So what would your tips be to make it through the rest of this Venus retrograde?
Okay, first of all, leave things in your shopping cart for 48 hours before you hit purchase. So I did this. I went to H&M one day and I found the perfect pair of really, really soft jeans. And if you find a pair of jeans, especially from somewhere like H&M that's really affordable, and you're like, wow, this is really great, you're like, maybe I should buy like 5 more pairs, because jeans are difficult. So I didn't. But then actually later on, I thought about it again. And I was like, maybe I should go get some in a couple other colors. And then I actually went through the process of putting it in my cart, and then I got distracted. And then I kept thinking about it, and I was like, okay, that's a good indicator that I actually do maybe need another pair of jeans, and this is a good purchase. Do that with everything that's worth more than $10 during this period.
Okay.
I remember last Venus retrograde, I think I spent $300 on new hair care because I was going down the TikTok rabbit hole of everyone telling me, like, here's the curly girl method and here's all this stuff. And I don't have curly hair. Like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But it was Venus retrograde in Leo. And so I spent all this money on hair products, and it took me a year to work through all of them. I did use them, but just sit on your purchases a little bit. That's one tip.
Got it.
Don't get plastic surgery and injections or do crazy things to your hair. I had a friend go get Botox, routine Botox, and I was like, she's like, I do this all the time. I was like, okay, it's fine. Not doing anything crazy. And she got a migraine because they said that they over injected her. Oh. And that has never happened before. Oh. So she's like, yeah, I'll never do that again. So that's a good learning. Good learning. We don't get
Yes.
injections during retrograde.
Okay.
I did actually, as far as like, beauty stuff, because that rules Venus, that's ruled by Venus, is haircuts. And it was Venus retrograde that made me realize, I really need a haircut. And I'm just going to get a very modest trim.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing crazy, no color dye. But I think Venus retrograde can sometimes put into perspective, like, what do we need to do to like feel better in our skin and our appearance and be more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Retrogrades are good for recalibration, and relationships is a big one.
Yeah.
Be really careful treading. I've been telling all my single girlfriends to just take a break from the apps if it hasn't been going well for a little while. Like use this to invest in you and just get off the apps for the 40 days of Venus retrograde.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Those are some good tips. No injections. Think about your purchases. If you're single, get off the apps.
Yeah.
And don't cut
Cautious
those
about
bangs.
tattoos too.
Okay. And tattoos. Got it.
I mean, I'm not going to say don't get tattoos totally, because, I have friends who are tattoo artists and I don't want to put them out of business.
Yeah.
Like you can get tattoos, but like, don't go get anything that you're kind of like on a whim about, plan your tattoos. That's a good rule of thumb anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So anything serious, consider it before you make the move.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
and
what I'm
just
getting.
even big purchases, like don't purchase like really big things during Venus retrograde.
Okay.
And if you have Venus retrograde in your natal chart, sometimes it can benefit you. You might meet your person during Venus retrograde, or you might get some kind of lucky break or some kind of positive thing. I still probably wouldn't teeter the line of like, injections and big purchases, but you might get a little bit more luck on your side if you have Venus retrograde in your birth chart.
I think, don't we both have that?
I do.
Yeah, I do too.
I think you might.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we're going to have lucky days.
Yeah. Manifesting that.
Manifest. Okay. So that's helpful, Venus retrograde. I know another one of the big astrological events here is the Mercury retrograde. That goes through April 7th, right?
Yeah, the funny thing about that is that the Venus and Mercury are happening at the same time and in the same signs.
Oh.
I mean, truthfully, it's not crazy that they're in the same signs. Venus and Mercury do travel close to one another. They can't travel more than a few signs apart. Like they're always going to be close to each other. But I do think it's funny when they happen at the same time and through the same signs, which are Aries into Pisces. So if you have early Aries, late Pisces, then this Mercury and Venus retrograde are going to be hauling over your personal planets, which means you probably will feel the effects in whatever manifestation it shows up in your life stronger than the average person. Mercury is just not that big of a deal, though, because we get this 3 weeks at a time, 3 times a year. It's the exact same ratio that we sleep.
Oh, interesting. I like that.
So it's
That's
a rest period.
Fact. That's a very fun fact. And I know that we've talked about this before, but like Mercury retrograde's like a good time to go back and kind of like revise, revisit, rebrand things that we've already been working on, right?
Oh, yeah. Like I have a project that I started back in LA like 18 months ago, and I'm planning to whip it back out this coming week.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right on time.
It from the back burner.
You've been promoted to front burner. Welcome back. Okay. Should we talk about eclipse season?
I saw it. I saw it last night out of my bedroom balcony, the first one. So there's 2 in March. And so we had the first one actually was through winter season because it was in Pisces season on March 13th. It was beautiful. And because we're in California, we could see it before bedtime at like 10, 11 o'clock at night. I saw the red glow around it, super creepy and ominous. So wild to think about what our ancestors before technology would have thought when they were looking at that.
Right. Obviously that it was their last day on Earth, probably.
Yeah, like the moon is melting. I can't imagine they don't know what black holes are, but like, oh, are we all going to be sucked into this black vacuum that the moon is being sucked into? Like,
yeah.
I always think about that in the context of how we communicate and understand with the planets now, is even though we know what it is, that is so bizarre. It's absolutely so bizarre that we can witness that.
But also, like, we think we know what it is now, but what if we're wrong? You know what I mean?
That's not not a bad point. You know, I mean, we have things to kind of prove enough what we know it is, but it's still, I guess there's wiggle room in everything. There's definitely wiggle room in gravity.
Sorry, that was an Aquarius tangent.
No, that's a good point. The next one is a solar eclipse. So that's going to happen during the day. It's the sun is blacking out instead of the moon blacking out.
Got it.
It's on March 29th in Aries. And this is really significant for a couple of reasons. The big one being it is the final eclipse of this cycle. So the eclipses move in cycles that last about 2 years.
Okay.
18 months to 2 years. If we're looking at an astrological birth chart, there's these little things that look like horseshoes, and those are the north and south node, and they're always opposite one another. And they move around the chart backwards from the rest of the planets. Those are just mathematical points in the sky that show you where the moon's path intersects with the Earth's path. It makes a little X. And these change signs every 18 months, give or take. And for the last 18 months, they have been in Aries and Libra, two signs that are opposite one another. So Aries and Libra have been having the eclipses every 6 months. There's been Aries and Libra eclipses, recalibrating our relationships, encouraging us to get divorced, helping us meet our soulmates, releasing codependency, embracing independence and bravery. Those are the themes. And then in January, the nodes switched over to Pisces and Virgo. Now the eclipses are going to be in Pisces and Virgo, but we had to have one more Aries eclipse to say goodbye to Aries. And that is this one on March 29th. Okay. So this is a really big deal for people who have Aries and Libra placements specifically. But if there's anything in your life that really, really transformed and changed, exploded, grew, outgrew since April 8th of 2023, this is going to put a nail in the coffin.
Okay. That sounds exciting.
It's pretty cool. Like I've had this one client who's very Libra dominant and has gone through a very intense whirlwind of relationships that started right around April 8th, meeting lots of different people. And honestly, like the hero's journey of relationship stories. And I think she's writing a book about it. And just now, like this month, she finally was like, I think I learned all the lessons that I need to learn in the form of relationships. And now this month feels like my graduation of like everything that I was put through these last 2 years. And I feel like that's like kind of the textbook example of what this cycle is doing and how it's bringing it to a close. And so reflect on what's been going on in the Aries Libra axis of relationships in your life since April of 2023 and consider what might be the closure point that's happening at the end of this month.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to manifest for me in particular, or even like for you, but I do think it's, I've been calling it a powerful ending that facilitates a new beginning because it is a new moon. You know, solar eclipses do happen during new moons, which are indicators of new beginnings. But it's giving the beginning of the end, or like the beginning of something new, and this is the end of a cycle.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
So how do we put a bow on, or when is that technically the end of this eclipse season?
It is. You could definitely call it the end of an eclipse season.
Okay.
And then they kind of overlap though. That's what's a little bit tricky, is because we've already started the Virgo Libra or the Virgo Pisces eclipse season. That was March 13th is when it really kicked off. We kind of had a teaser back in September 2024, but it wasn't fully in that sign yet. It was like the prequel. Now we're in it. And so there's an overlapping of being in one sign and the other sign. And it's kind of because when we're working with the nodes, they are this loose enigma of like a calculated point versus a precise degree, because it kind of moves back and forth, really shifty. I won't get too mathy and technical, but essentially there's an overlap period. So we've started the Virgo Pisces portal, but we're wrapping up the Aries Libra portal in the same month. And the next 2 weeks, you know, or around this eclipse can be a really strange time. And I always like to say, put your butt in the passenger seat and just let things happen to you and try not to be so in control, because the more that you try to drive the car, you're going to drive it off the tracks.
Oh, that is what we always talk about when we talk about eclipse seasons, is like letting go of control and just like having to ride the waves, which is easier said than done.
Oh, for sure. And there's two camps of astrologers who are like, you know, some of us are very like, you have free will, you have free will. I believe you have free will. Like, I could throw this computer off my balcony right now, walk to the airport, and fly to Jamaica. And then there's the free will within logical parameters of, am I going to do that? No, I'm not. And then there's this idea that everything is kind of fated and planned out and in destiny. And I think there's some of that to a degree. And it's like our birth charts show us what that range of destiny is. But the eclipses are the one thing where I'm like, destiny is in charge. Like, stop thinking you have free will. Because if things are going to happen, they're going to happen during eclipses that really just like drive things along the way that they're supposed to. If that friendship is supposed to fall out of your life, is going to happen during an eclipse.
Yep. I mean, in some ways that's also kind of nice, because you're like, it was the eclipse, just going with what's supposed to happen. But I understand and I appreciate,
maybe like a bypass.
Yeah. Well, I understand and I appreciate the balance of like the free will versus like the fate, or like fated, like universal, like destined moments. Because I think even just that like dynamic or concept in just outside of eclipse season is so interesting, because it's like, I do think there is both at play all the time. But then I think it's also helpful to know, like, oh, we are in this eclipse period, and so there is going to maybe be a bit more of like just kind of fated occurrences.
Yeah, absolutely. All of that. And it drives home the fact of the other transits that we have. You don't get to just be like, oh, oopsie, blame it on astrology. You don't get to bypass that. This is one of those ones where you kind of get a little pass to. So I'm giving you that permission. But if you're the kind of person that's like, oh, sorry, I was late because of Mercury Retrograde. No, you probably just have ADHD, and that's okay. But
yeah, not everything is the moon's fault. Not everything is Mercury's fault.
Yeah. And you might have preferences over which sign energy bugs you the most. Like, we all do. But at the end of the day, like, I know why that sign energy bugs me. I know why it does. I know my patterning with it. I know that my own shit that I have to integrate and work through. And so it's opportunity to like, look at yourself. You can't blame everything on outside forces.
Yeah.
Except the eclipses a little bit.
Calling us out. But it is appreciated. And yeah, so when does the eclipse season conclude then? What's the date on that?
The Aries eclipse season?
Yeah.
I would say it concludes within that week of the new moon. So, I mean, technically the day of the eclipse, the 29th, but I always say give it about a week to sort of wiggle itself out because you might still have some eclipsey events a few days after. But that's pretty conclusive of the end of things for that cycle.
Okay. The other things that I know we noted for big astrological events coming up, Neptune and Saturn are entering Aries.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
Tell us about that, please.
This is such a funny one because I can remember being in astrology school back in like 2019 and thinking, damn, I wonder what that transit in 2025 is going to be like. And thinking that that was a really long ways away. And now we're here. Saturn is not comfortable in Aries. It's a funny Saturn placement. And I think it's important to consider that Saturn's been in Pisces for 2.5 years. You know, as soon as Saturn went into Pisces in 2023, everyone started talking about sober curious, California sober. Everyone was kind of checking their relationship with alcohol and escapism. Screen time limits became more of like the zeitgeist of conversation. And it was great for my industry of spirituality, and also really bad too, because it was when we started dealing with these people would make fake accounts of like they would make duplicate accounts of our pages and try to scam people on the internet and give them fake readings, which was awful. It was so bad. It was a reputation ruiner. It was ruining people's lives. So all the readers of the world would be like, I will never DM you for a reading. That was a part of that. And so we always deal with the shady side of the karma and the good side of the karma whenever we have a Saturn in a sign. So the last time we had Saturn in Aries was the mid-90s. It's on a 30-year cycle. So we were both pretty young. I don't really know what was... When I think of Saturn in Aries, I think of... Aries, when I think on a global scale, I think of, masculinity and war and sports and athletics and hustle and grind, entrepreneurial culture. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how Saturn extracts the karma related to those things, far and wide, big and small, personal and collective. That kicks off in May. So we have a little bit of time on that one.
Okay.
I started with that first, though, because Saturn is closer to us. It moves every 2.5 years, and it's on a 30-year cycle. It's funny to think about the yin energy of Saturn and Pisces as kind of like not necessarily passive, but a little more gentle. It's a yin sign. And then going into Aries, being very yang and masculine and extroverted, it will be interesting to see what shakes out come late May. When there's no retrograde slowing things down either. Because if you've got Aries energy happening and no retrogrades, it's like those little walking belts in the airport where you're like, I'm walking on the moon and I'm getting there so much faster because there's movement underneath me.
The magic sidewalks.
Magic sidewalks equals Saturn in Aries.
Okay.
We're getting there way faster and more aggressively. And that doesn't necessarily mean anger and violence. I want to preface that. But if you think about, those videos of the little girls like looks at a puppy and she's like cuteness overload and she's like, I want to squeeze your face. Like that's an example of Aries. It can be so overly emotive and excited that you just kind of throw yourself into it. It's so much more all in committed, driven, not going to mince words. You just, it's convicted.
Yeah. Okay. So you said there's like the karma or like maybe the kind of dark side of the energy and also like the positive side of the energy, right?
Right. Yeah. Like the example I used was with Saturn and Pisces. It wreaked havoc on spiritual businesses, but it also helped so many of us who were trying to do good work in the world and help people gain a lot of traction and build platforms. And it helped people get sober. I think that's always a great thing, no matter what. So I do think good things will come from Saturn. Saturn isn't all bad, but it is about what do you need to get into check. And so I'm like, okay, maybe if you're overproductive and you're wearing yourself into the ground, like I know firsthand, I'm gonna have to figure out my teeth grinding issue and my jaw stuff, because Aries is like the head and the tension and the stress. And I don't know why. I guess it's just like a genetic thing. We got jaw stuff. And so I'm like, I know right away. I'm like, that's on my checklist to take care of with Saturn and Aries is figuring out the subconscious stress that makes me grind my teeth at night so that I don't wear my teeth down. So I'm already kind of projecting like, okay, that's something I'm going to start like prioritizing and working on. And, if there's something related to your health that might be stress related or from overworking yourself or over caffeinating or something, that might be something that you say, I'm going to work on that when this period inevitably comes around.
That could be. I've been on one of those like Coca-Cola at 3 p.m. every day kind of kicks. And then immediately afterwards, I feel myself like clenching and I'm like, why am I doing this? Maybe that will be my Saturn and Aries.
In Mexico. Mexico. Because same thing. But the clench is real.
The clench is real. And I'm like, did you need that caffeine, girl? No, you didn't. But like you wanted it. So here we are. Just like gritting for no fucking reason.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's also Neptune that's going to be in Aries at the same time, correct?
Yeah, this one's an interesting one. So Neptune is an outer planet that moves very slowly. So Neptune has not been in Aries since 1861.
Wow.
So we don't have any stuff in our lifetime that lays the precedent for this. The biggest thing that I've noticed so far in the transition of this, because this transit begins like the very last day of March. This is coming up. This transition of Neptune in Aries, the 30th. Yeah, March 30th. It's not going to be there fully. It's still going to go back to Pisces a little bit later in the fall. But this is really big because it's been in Pisces since 2011.
Wow.
That's pretty major.
Yeah.
It stays in a sign for about 14 years. And Neptune is a really elusive planet to try to describe the nature of it. It's like this gaseous being. It's everything from our crown chakra to spirituality to escapism and loss and the spirit world. And so it's all the things that are very difficult to describe and put words to. When you go to art museum and you're like kind of overcome with emotion, that's a Neptunian experience, but you can't really describe it.
Oh, okay.
Other than that.
That makes sense.
Or if you walk into a room, you're really sensitive to smells. So this might make more sense. You walk into a room and you smell something and you're like, oh, I smell something, but I also am like through that intuiting that like someone died here. That's a Neptunian experience.
Got it.
If you have a really bad day and you decide I'm going to go black out, that's a Neptunian experience. There's a lot of different types of Neptunian experiences, but Neptune being in Pisces, I think it's been a really challenging thing for us collectively because we've kind of become drunk on our own bullshit.
That's interesting.
like religion has kind of gotten out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, just using religion as a tool for division is very Neptune and Pisces, and being like, oh, well, this is an alternative fact. That's very Neptune and Pisces, you know, sort of this idea that we can bend and massage and just make things what they aren't by way of shape shifting and adding fluff. And there's a lot of delusion. You know, it's kind of funny in the last year, the whole like Delulu is the Solulu has become like this cutesy catchphrase.
Yeah.
And at this last year, we've been at the final degrees of Neptune in Pisces. And when a planet reaches the final degree or so, or right before, we get the shadow. It's kind of like the crisis, all hell breaks loose right before the big transition into the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're there right now. Like we're at the 29th, like the final degree. And you're on social media probably as much as me, if not more, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've noticed this, but the bot comments on everything are really wild right now compared to what I've seen in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was looking at, you know, this girl's talking about completely random stuff, and people in the comments would be like, you just need to get right by God. Like, you know, the rapture's coming. Like, I'm praying for you. And it was just multiple comments. And I was like, okay, first of all, is this some type of like, you know, after the whole TikTok debacle at the beginning of the year, is this related to that? Or is this like collective psychosis or like collective, trying to grasp at some type of meaning because the world has gone nuts?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is, but it's all a symptom of Neptune at that final degree. And being a yin sign, it's almost like we're swimming around drunk in the water is a good way to describe Neptune and Pisces at the final degree. And then all of a sudden, Neptune and Aries, if you watch Leave the World Behind, it's like that barge just goes whoop, straight to the shore.
Yeah.
You're drunk and floundering around in the water. It's come to an end, and now it's time to take action. And fingers crossed, I have a hope that everyone will wake up, that it will be like oh my God, I didn't realize I was in a cult. Silly. How could this have happened to me? Everything makes so much sense now.
Yeah. That would be nice.
It would be nice. That's my Barbie Land vision of it.
Yeah.
Usually we land somewhere outside of Barbie Land. And so the other one is everyone's ready to kind of like dive in and actually take action instead of being, you know what? If Neptune and Pisces were a character, it would be like your aunt who's self-medicated.
Oh.
You know, the one that's like, red hair, sweetie. Good. Do you have a boyfriend? You know, just the like
we all know
the mom
her
from White Lotus. The mom from White Lotus,
Oh,
Parker
yeah.
Posey's character. She's so Neptune and Pisces, like deluded.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Neptune and Aries is the crash that's going to come when she finds out that her husband has committed fraud and embezzlement, and her whole little world shatters. That would be a shadow expression of Neptune and Aries, where suddenly it's like, you can't hide anymore. What you see is what you get. It's all here right in front.
Right.
That's Neptune and Aries.
Okay. So shattering delusions coming soon.
I think it will be good for us all to stop self-sabotaging. Because I think Neptune and Pisces love self-sabotage, and Neptune and Aries does not have excuses for that.
You know what? That could be good for me.
It could be good for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how long is that then? You said how many years? Like basically for the rest of our lifetime.
No, not the rest of our lifetime. Like it's, you know, it's about a 14-year debacle of Neptune and Aries. It just hasn't been in Aries since 1861.
Got it. Okay. That was
what
I can
double check on the year that I've been really I know, that's terrifying, right? I've been really fixated on Pluto and Aquarius being there until 2042 that I haven't even checked how long we have of Neptune and Aries because we're still not officially in it. Like we're getting our taste of it this summer and it goes back into Pisces. So we're going to have some more, Delulu is the Salulu, and then we'll come back to it and be like, okay, let's settle back into Neptune and Aries now and find our roots again. And yeah.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a good one. I know the last big kind of transit for this period that we had noted for today is Jupiter entering Cancer on June 9th.
I'm really excited for this one.
Okay. Do tell.
Well, first of all, June 9th is a really super loaded day transit wise. I remember when I was riding the Grove and I got to that day and I was like, wow, there's about 10 major transits that day.
Oh,
that
wow.
never really happens. And so you're going to feel something on that day. I promise you will, whether it's Jupiter moving into Cancer or not. But as a Cancer moon, I'm excited for it. Just in general, Jupiter is not functioning well in Gemini, and that's where it's been since May. And, Jupiter being an expander, it grows things, it amplifies things. And in Gemini, we're talking about duality, nuance, division, media. Jupiter has definitely done its work in those areas since May. That means Jupiter will do its work in Cancer themes starting June. So I feel like that's going to be good for housing. That's my Barbie Land vision, my Barbie Land dream for that one. Good for prosperity, like the idea of like you're doing better. We're definitely headed towards a recession, but I'm like, okay, maybe this is going to be kind of like a silver lining or some kind of positive out of that, because I just don't see Jupiter in Cancer as this bad transit. It's on a 12-year cycle. So we did have one back in 2013-ish, about 2013 was the last time Jupiter was in Cancer. I think it's a good one. The only thing that I'm a little nervous about is the amplification of other Cancer things like the nuclear family, the traditional family values, the tradwifery. Like we can expect more of that.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
As if we don't have enough, but I think we can. Cancer rules everything from like family and motherhood and heritage and all those kind of like traditional things. And I'm a Cancer moon. I'm like the least traditional person on earth, but I'm like, I still make a mean chocolate chip cookie and I know how to do like folksy stuff, like, make my own vinegar, like those kinds of things. Just in like a all y'all kind of way instead of the other way. But so maybe people will really get into like gardening and homesteading and not in a tradwife way. Maybe that'll be more of a popular thing because Uranus will be threatening our food system even more than it already is now. And so people will be like, okay, I'm going to come up with all these hacks on how to have like city gardens and, food shares and co-ops. And like, maybe we'll find better solutions for food systems within like cities and small communities. So that could be a big plus. I think hot girls garden. Like we need to learn how to garden. Even if it's just those little like balcony terraces.
I like that.
Garden like this and garden like real tomatoes. There's two different types of gardening, but
we're gardening
I think we should
tomatoes.
Do all of them.
This sounds like the opposite of buying a $19 strawberry at Erewhon.
But maybe we could grow our own $19 strawberries.
See, I was just saying this the other night. I'm like, you know what? If Erewhon can sell $19 strawberries, who am I to not sell $30 strawberries? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm like, you've seen those towers that are kind of like self-watering and you have all these herbs and
Yes.
stuff in the big white tower.
Yeah.
I'm into that, but I'm also like, that's really expensive. Do I want to pay for that? And so I'm like, how can I get kind of savvy and sort of build my own? Like, I don't know if this random fun fact about me, I don't know if you know this, but I did build a tiny house when I was in college.
What?
So I'm really crafty with woodworking. I love woodworking. It was a strange hobby of mine most of my life because I grew up in the country. And I was like, maybe I could like woodwork some kind of crazy balcony garden system.
For
And
our
I'm
fruit
going to be growing
stand.
like, yeah, you know, those t-shirts where they show like all the herbs that they've used as like contraceptives. That's the kind of garden I want to have. I want to have like a herb garden of contraceptives so all the girlies can come to me and I'm like the witch that's like, you need some Mary Jane or do you need some tomatoes or do you need some contraceptive herbs or do you need some belladonna to get rid of him? But I got all the herbs on my balcony garden.
I've literally never seen that shirt.
I think it's a sign that we should pursue this.
I'll let you take the lead. I will be emotional support. I will be hype girl. And I will be marketer number 2.
I think you could be product tester for some of those things too.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I think you'd probably be a really good product tester. So.
That I would be because I used to do secret shopping for hotels. So I'm really good with, you know, working my way around a room, pointing out everything that's right and everything that's wrong.
Wow, I didn't even know that was a job.
So we've learned a lot here. Jupiter in Cancer. We're excited. If there is some homesteading happening, we need to make it cute. And yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I can see why you're excited about this one.
Cute and with rights. Cute and with rights.
Cute and with rights. Obviously, that makes it even more cute. Okay. Is there any other big happening astrologically during Aries, Taurus, Gemini season before we start talking about the new moons?
I mean, I don't really want to get into Uranus, but I'll just say this in like 30 seconds.
Okay.
Uranus doesn't switch over to Gemini until mid-July, but that means it's going to be at the 29th degree of Taurus. And so when I said the thing about food systems being wackadoodle and then Jupiter and Cancer coming in and saving things, just keep that in mind. Like, I do think our food systems are getting more wackadoodle as time goes on.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so distant from our food. I have hunted. I don't want to do it. It's not something I want to do. I've shot a buck. I ate the buck, but I don't want to do it. It's not out of choice. So maybe there's solutions that we can create within Jupiter and Cancer that allow the people who enjoy shooting the buck and preparing it a little more locally, sustainably.
Yeah.
If I had to do that, I would be vegetarian. Full on.
I don't know. I need my protein. I might have to. I can't think about that.
Well, just know I could teach you how to do it if we had to go there. So as a rich bitch tip, just be this is not a scarcity move. This is a rich bitch move.
Yes.
Just add you some extra bags of rice and beans when you go to the grocery store and learn how to be savvy with some of your foods. One of my favorite things I ever learned how to do was turn old sourdough bread into croutons that bang on a Caesar salad.
See, that I can get on board with.
It's so easy.
That I can get on board with.
Yeah.
Please do share the recipe.
Is a resourcefulness doesn't have to be ugly.
See, I like that. I'm on board. You've got me back. You lost me at buck. You've redeemed me at croutons. So
I'm so glad.
With that, I want to shift gears and talk about the new moons we have coming up in this time period, because this is one of my favorite parts of our forecast, because this is where we really get into our manifestations and our manifesting of original Rich-Bixch experiences. Typically, each moon has a theme that we can kind of rally around. And so let's start with the first new moon of spring.
Well, the first one is that eclipse at 9 degrees Aries on March 29th. And you know what's funny about this one is there's going to be a lot of rhetoric on the apps that says you should not do any manifestation during eclipses. But there's some caveats to that, because Jan Spiller, who is mother goddess of moon manifestation, who's on the other side, and anytime I do a moon circle, I always invoke her energy, and which is why all of your manifestations do come true eventually, because she's powerful. Always said that you can do manifesting, goal setting, intention setting during a new moon eclipse. It's actually super powered. My rule of thumb is I don't really mess around with energy rituals, moon water, witchcraft, etc. during a lunar eclipse, which is what we just had on the 13th. New moons, fair game. And they might even be super powered. There's also a little bit of a caveat here too. I find that they're a little more potent when they're a north node eclipse than a south node, and for different reasons. So a south node eclipse is so much better for releasing. Like, you could literally write your intention of, I want to be freed of my nicotine habit at a south node solar eclipse. And that would be a very powerful time to release that. Or it could be like my addiction to sugar or screen time. It doesn't matter what it is. But if there's something you want to release, this friendship is no longer serving me, send it on with the south node eclipse. This one is a north node eclipse, which is giving more hunger. In traditional Vedic astrology, the north node is the head of the dragon, which is all about claiming something. It's a hungry dragon that wants to go after it, eat it, and make it his. So take that energy into that new moon of, what are you really hungry for? What do you want to make happen? What do you need to do to make it happen? Break it down into tiny little goals and do that thing.
Okay.
And my rule of thumb is you always have to do the new moon ritual manifestation after the new moon. If you do it leading up to, you're working with a dying moon. Hot girls don't do that.
No.
That's a balsamic moon. We don't do that.
We need full moon energy. Not full moon.
Which Saturday, the 29th, is fair game after 4 a.m. PST. So 4 a.m. PST is when that eclipse hits.
Okay.
Which means we won't see it in our part of the world. But that's okay.
Yeah.
We got to see the other one. We will have others.
Okay.
And that one's going to be in Aries. So if you're in Aries, could be a big one. Also, there's another tip here. I don't know if we've talked about this before. If the eclipse is in your 11th house, it's an extra lucky one. Which means if you're a Gemini rising, this eclipse is your lucky. This new moon is your lucky one of the year. So you can write even more intentions and wishes. Jan says cap it at 40.
Wow.
I think it's really generous. It's actually very hard to write 40 things.
Wow. I think I make it to like maybe 5.
Yeah, that's actually really good.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. So this sounds like a really good one for like setting a big goal or like really manifesting something you've been wanting for a while and like getting serious about how we get it done. What is the next new moon of spring?
Then we're looking at April 27th.
Okay.
This is in Taurus at 7 degrees Taurus. So it's not going to be anywhere near Uranus, which is a really nice reprieve, but it is going to be pretty close to a square to Pluto and Mars in Leo. So this could be, a little testy. I think what might happen for some people at this one, with that bullheaded Taurus energy of the new moon that really wants to drive us forward. And then the frustration of Mars and Pluto is that desire for newness. And if something is not in alignment, you're going to know and you're going to say, okay, here's what I need to do to make this shift happen. So I do think it's going to be very powerful for calling in new things, especially things that are rooted around finding your groundedness, finding your rootedness, stabilization. Because let's face it, the last few months have been super destabilizing. So this is kind of a new opportunity to find your footing.
Okay.
I would do some type of ritual with cacao at this one.
Okay.
Like real cacao.
Mm-hmm.
You can get it from, the food store, but like the real organic raw cacao. It's so funny. Even if you just like drink it in a really high concentration, you can feel the energy of yourself kind of like coming back down to earth again.
Oh, wow. That sounds fun.
And I've just been living in Mexico, and that part of Mexico is such a portal for cacao as medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a closed practice, so anyone can work with cacao and chocolate. It's a big heart opener. So to go into that, and as a Rich-Bixch experience, permission slip to eat chocolate and let it open your heart, I think that's really beautiful. So that one is at 12:30 p.m. on Sunday, the 27th of April. That's Pacific time. So do your new moon rituals after 12:30 PST. I like this one. This one's going to be the first new moon since February that's, free and clear of chaos energy, of eclipses and stuff.
Yeah, that's good. That one sounds extra fun because, chocolate.
Extra fun. I mean, there will be some friction, but I think that friction is going to be very inspiring to kind of like put you back on track. Just don't get frustrated with yourself if it's not all together. New moons are when you're planting the seeds, not when you're harvesting them. And I think we forget that sometimes.
Do you like how my mind just blew like right past the friction and like straight to the chocolate? I was like, I didn't even remember that part. It's like, no.
Double Taurus.
That's all I heard. I'm so sorry. Okay.
It is okay.
Do we have one more new moon for the spring season?
Yes, we do. Oh, by the way, as far as I was talking about with the lucky periods.
Yeah.
So the one in Taurus, the Taurus new moon, is extra lucky if you are a Cancer rising.
Okay. That's not me, but it could be you. Yeah. We'll see.
Could be you.
Could be you. It's not me.
Okay. The last one of this season is in Gemini. Mm-hmm. It's at 6 degrees. And this one is connected to Pluto, Neptune, and Mercury by several different aspects. But it's not necessarily as much friction. These are actually some pretty nice aspects. Like I know it's a trine to Pluto. That's good. Sextile to Neptune. I'm not sure what the Mercury one is here, but those already is like, okay, this is going to bring some clarity to the forefront, new ideas, downloads, especially with that Gemini cerebral energy. This is going to be one where you want to write down your ideas, put it on paper, just chuck it in a journal somewhere, even if it doesn't make sense now, and just come back to it later.
Okay.
I like this one. I always say give it a little time. In the Grove, I always put like your checkpoint of where you should check in at the full moon that's related to that to show you when your manifestation should come true. But it's never, ever usually going to come true at the 2-week period, at the new moon, at the full moon 2 weeks later. You got to give yourself some time and space to make stuff happen.
Yeah.
Leo risings will be the one to have this one be their lucky new moon.
Okay. Well,
so this one's very journal heavy.
Yeah.
Like chocolate for Taurus season, journals for Gemini.
Yeah. And what day is that one?
May 26th.
Okay.
On a Monday at 8:02 p.m. So after 8 o'clock in California, you're good to go for your new moon rituals. But that's kind of late for East Coasters. So do it the next day. If you're in London, if you're in Thailand, it's going to be the next day anyway.
Yeah.
So just wait until after. Don't do it on the 26th. Do it on the 27th.
Okay. Because we don't want to be too early. We'd rather be like slightly a little bit late. Yep.
Actually, astrology, new moon wishing is one of those times when fashionably late is way better than being early.
Mm-hmm. Another reason why we just love astrology.
Yeah, I mean, take it from an ADHD Gemini. Being a few minutes late has never hurt anybody.
Like, you'll be fine. Okay, so to recap the new moons, it sounds like the first one, really kind of like strong, big goal, action-oriented. The second one, maybe a little bit more about kind of like grounding, like coming back into your body, all the nice Taurus things. And then the third one being like more of maybe just like a brainstorming phase of just getting a bunch of ideas out and kind of planting those seeds, but also like knowing it'll be like 6 months until whatever that is kind of takes place.
Could not have said it better.
Yay! Okay, I like that. It sounds like I see what you mean by like the first part of spring being like really heavy here. Like we're in it right now. It's just a lot. It's very chaotic. And then it does seem to smooth out, which I think will probably feel really nice. And I mean, I'm looking forward to that. As we kind of put a wrap on things, like, is there anything else for spring in particular that we should just kind of keep in mind? Like, how do you want to kind of encapsulate everything we just pointed out and noted for this upcoming season?
I think you're right on about the first part being so chaotic that my word of advice is don't let it numb you out, because we don't want to fall into the shadow of Neptune and Pisces of just being like, the world's burning down, but we're used to this since 2020. Just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal.
Ooh.
And I think if you are one of those people that's like, oh, but I want to stay informed, it's like, yeah, but your ancestors did not know what was going on 2 hours down the road, and they survived. I get it's different now. Our food systems rely on, global economies. Things are different, absolutely. But the rhetoric of I need to be informed and know everything, actually, I spent a whole day off of social media in real life connecting with clients and friends when I was in La Jolla last weekend. And I was like, this is the best I've felt since November.
Yeah.
Because the real world was happening outside of a screen.
Yeah.
And if that's all you take from this to get you through the next couple of months, weeks at this point, take it what you will, but prioritize your mental health first and know that this is some of the craziest astrology I've ever seen. We did have crazy astrology in 2020 because we had a crazy life in 2020.
Yeah.
But I would say this is different. It's more activated, way more divided, a little scarier. And so it's just energy manifesting as events and as people. We've lived through crazy times on Earth. Humans have. We haven't, maybe, but we have,
Yeah.
We have. And, we'll get through things. Don't be numb, and don't overfill yourself with too much information than what you need to know. And I think one of the most practical things we can do is learn a new handy skill.
Okay.
Like, I think hobbies are going to be like really cool again.
Oh, yeah.
Very soon. Like, people are kind of already getting offline and being like, oh, I have like a pottery class that I go to.
Yeah.
That would sensorially drive me to the moon. I could not be a potter.
Like the clay in your fingernails.
Absolutely not.
It's a no for me.
I think it's so cute. I love ceramics. I cannot touch it. Like, I'm too autistic for that. It would send me to another planet. But yeah, find something. Find some kind of hobby. Maybe, if you see me building a bookcase, it's gotten to a point.
You've gone back to woodworking.
Yeah, woodworking is a metric of how are we doing. But you know what? Do it. You know what I bought the other day at Michael's? is this little thing I forget what it's called. It's like diamond painting.
Oh.
And it's like paint by number, but you use crystals, little diamond crystals.
What?
And it is super relaxing, and you make art out of it.
That sounds really cute. Will you send me a photo?
Yeah.
Sidebar, offline.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's really good advice. Whenever I also take some time off the internet or away from work, it just feels so nice. And I feel like one of my hobbies that I'm kind of getting into a bit more is studying wine. And when people ask me like why, I'm like, well, it's just something physical. Like it's just something that exists outside of a screen or technology, and it is really connected to the earth, like you grow the grapes and then the grapes you have to turn into wine. And so it does feel really nice. Like I can definitely affirm that. And so as long as my wine stays accessible financially, I will continue to pursue that as a hobby, if you will. And I do think like hobbies, I was seeing something recently where it's just like free time is sort of like now like the measure of like how well off you are. It's like if you have free time to do something, it's like that's the new life goal. And so I'm very excited to lean into that. And I agree with you that just like time away from screens, only taking in what you need to know and like not everything else. And also getting like a tangible physical hobby of some sort feels really good. So I'm going to continue to lean into that for spring. Yeah. Thanks for that.
And wine is such a smart girl, hot girl thing to do. That's so elite. And that is ancient, that is an old skill.
Yeah, it's old.
And maybe you'll get into even like making your own wines one day. Like, when our generation reaches a point where we can buy land, which is bananas to think about, maybe we'll have, maybe we'll have our fruity compound out in the middle of California greenery and we'll be growing grapes, and you might know what to do with them.
I will know what to do with them. I will make sure of it.
Yeah. I'll get some bees for some honey.
Yeah, we've already designated you for the bees. I'll do the wine, and there are a few roles up for grabs, but we don't have to figure those out today.
Yeah. Just learn the skills now.
That's the key takeaway. If you
think you might want to join our compound, you probably should go learn some skills and make yourself valuable.
Yes. I feel like it'll be a while before we have the details of our new venture nailed down, but it's happening. It's already happening. It's in the works. We're manifesting. Before we close out today, I wanted to give you the opportunity to share any last words of wisdom, to let us know what you're up to. Is there anything that we need to make sure that we are doing? How can we work with you this season? What's going on?
I always say don't forget to look up.
I love that.
That's important. And it's almost the astrological new year, which means you either need to renew the grove or get the grove. And if you're getting it, why haven't you had it yet? If you're new, you definitely want this. You need this in your calendar.
Yeah.
We don't do like fear astrology here. It's not any like crazy horoscopes. It's like, here's what you should wear today. Go get this food for breakfast. And you should send that text after 12 p.m. Mm-hmm. You use a grove. What do you think about it?
I love it. So it just goes right onto my Google Calendar, and it tells me all of the astrology of the day and the week and et cetera, the year. But even today, to your point, I was going to send a text message, and I looked at the calendar, and it was a void moon. And I was like, oh, I'm going to wait until after the void moon, because what it says in the grove is that things are more likely to fall through if you like do them during a void moon period. So I find it very helpful. It's so fun also because I'm like looking at my calendar. I'm like meeting, Aaron. Oh, like let me read about this little bit of astrology. So I love it. I have renewed for 2025. It's already in my calendar, and I highly, highly recommend. You've created a really awesome tool that is just so, it just like fits into, you know, your daily routine. And I love it.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
You know what? I love that you mentioned the void moons too, because if you just use it for that, like that's
that
enough.
alone.
Because the void moons are so crazy. You need to be following the void moons. They happen every 2.5 days. They will wreck your life. Not really, but you know, like if I'm trying to plan where I'm going out to dinner or what I'm going to have for dinner and it's a void moon, it's like one of those blocks where I'm just like, I feel so stupid. I am having executive dysfunction, cannot do anything. And then I'll look, I'm like, it's a void moon. So then I started making them so I'd stop getting in fights with Bridget about what we're going to have for dinner. And she'll be like, it's a void moon today. Here's what we're going to do. And I'm like, yeah. It's already planned. I love this.
See, it's so helpful. It'll save your life in more ways than one. KJ, thank you so much for giving us everything we need to know about the astrology of spring. I am honored that you are the podcast's resident astrologer. I look forward to these episodes so much, and I reference them often throughout the season because it's just such helpful information. And I guess we'll see you in summer, right?
Oh, let's get there.
Yeah, I know. We do have to get through some spring first. That's valid. I'm always 5 steps ahead, but
I'm very excited about that.
KJ, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to see you soon.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Yay. Listen to the More Pod every Wednesday as I share the things that make me more me and discover a thing or two to make you more you.